lines.
Woohoo! We need to get one of those sounds that they can have,
No, why would we do that? Because you're
So
perfect
cool.
at doing the sounds.
I'm the audio. Yeah.
You're the soundbite. Yeah, perfect.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Power Platform Boost podcast, your timely source of Power Platform news and updates with your host, Nick Dahlman and Ulrikke Akerbeck. Hey, everyone.
Hey.
And hi, Nick. How are you doing?
I'm good.
I'm good, too.
I'm back home from last time.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a good weekend?
I did have a good weekend. Got some chores done. To participate in our local beer, craft beer festival here in Orleans, Ontario. So what it is just all the local craft brewers get together, and there you can go in. There's live music. There's a lot of friends. It was very funny. The part of Ottawa I live in is kind of like a small town. And then, a lot of friends and neighbors were here at that festival. And you can try out a whole bunch of different craft beers. It was a lot of fun. And the next day was a little fuzzy, but it was all good.
What was the most crazy brew? Did they have any chili beers or anything fancy?
There was one, something that had fiber in it, and it was called, I don't know, something and toot kind of thing.
Okay.
And then the other thing is there was another group there. There was a distillery. So, going beyond beer, and they were doing rum and vodka and everything like that. And they were serving up Caesars. Do you know what a Caesar is? Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah. Could it be, it's not cider? No.
No. Okay. So what a Caesar is, it's a Canadian drink. It's very much like in the US, they have Bloody Marys, which is like tomato juice. But the version in Canada, and it's very popular, they use clamato. So it's like clam juice with vodka. And then there's different spices and mixes and things like that. So if you're ever in when you come visit in Canada, I definitely will make sure that you have a Caesar.
Nice.
It's
sounds
interesting.
Bad, but it sounds like Caesar.
It does, but it is really good. So trust me on this. So if you're anyone of our friends out there listening, if you're ever visiting Canada, go to a bar or restaurant. And if you do drink alcohol, you can get them Virgin Caesars as well. But if you don't drink, but do definitely try to get a Caesar, as well as some poutine and a beaver tail and other Canadian goodness.
Oh, all new to me. Looking forward to trying it out.
For sure.
Sounds great. All right. So you're ready for some Power Platform news, Nick?
Sure. Has there been any Power Platform news this week? Of course, after Build, everything's dead, right? You would think.
Yeah, nothing big happened, really. We can just wrap it up, can't we?
Okay,
no, the list I don't think we've had the list this extensive any week. But so we have a lot of stuff to go through, as usual. But let's start off with something a little smaller, right? On the top of the list.
Yeah, so, it starts out small, but then it gets big. So this is Elastic Tables, and then Dataverse. And then you're probably wondering, what does Elastic Tables do, or what does that mean? So, and I'm still getting my head wrapped around this as well, but basically it is using Dataverse. Now, of course, Dataverse, we know, I think most people know that in the back end, it is Azure SQL that's running a lot of it. But of course, it also extends to a lot of other services like Azure Blob Storage and also Azure Cosmos DB. So we have this thing called Elastic Tables, which will expand and contract depending on the volume of data. So think of something like doing an IoT device, like you're out there collecting weather data or something. If a storm comes through, that's going to want to collect a lot of data in a very short time. So this is where an Elastic Table comes in. It can go and collect all of that data, where you can do analysis on it and pick out things. And then once that data is sort of expired, it has a time to live kind of situation. then it will sort of self delete and then kind of contract again. So I've
Mm.
not ever run into any kind of project where I needed this type of technology, but I am aware of other situations, like I said, the weather, other kind of data tracking kind of thing. Um, I know here they monitor the wastewater for like, COVID or whatever, and don't even get me started on that. But, you know, there's different things out there where, yeah, these elastic tables could come in. So yeah, definitely, if this is something that kind of fits your stream of thought, then definitely check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Sounds smart, because then you don't pay as much, right? So that's the
Yeah,
end goal, right? Is it to reduce cost and only pay for what you need at the time when you need it.
exactly.
Situations. Yeah, smart. Yeah, we're gonna just jump a little through or between the different products here. I picked up something this week that was really just so up my alley on Power Automate. David Wyatt, we've talked about his work before. He has a dev series on Power Automate, and how where he goes through different dev practices regarding Power Automate and how to do it. And I'm in the middle of a huge Power Automate project, where we've inherited a project from someone else. It turns out the flows are just, of course, too big, too complex, and not really intuitive for anyone. So our job is to translate that into Power Automate flows and divide it up to smaller flows that actually make sense and is more governable from an end user, from a low code user perspective, right? So this is right up our alley. This eighth blog post that he released this week, it was about conditions, and where he talks about the if condition, of course, being the fundamental expression that we use, and how to use basic conditions, escape conditions,
Mhm.
which is then run after. So the escape condition that caught my eye, as I wasn't aware that it was called the escape condition. But this is something following the fail fast methodology within development, where you check if a variable has a value, for instance, or check for something that, if this occurs, then stop, don't run any further, because this is a situation where we don't want you to go any further, and to not have those nested conditions, but actually have that as one condition. If it fails, then terminate. If it's success, then move forward, and then actually have that outside of the condition. And that is, it's not new, and but I think it's something that people, when they start off building flows, it's natural to think that you should nest the conditions inside of each other, but it's not necessary, because it will always run. If that succeeds, it will run to the next action, and it makes it easier to read and to maintain and to govern those flows. So check out that blog series on the Power Automate Dev.
Yeah, that's perfect because I think a lot of people test always the happy path, and sometimes you have to test the not so happy path probably more so than the happy path. Like you're like, yeah, this flow works. Like, of course it does because you've tested with all the right conditions. Like, try to
Exactly.
try to think like a user. What is the crazy stuff they're
Mm.
going to do or data they're going to put in? So yeah, that's
Yep.
great. Yeah, that's a great series. There's a lot of good tips in there. Speaking of Power Automate, now I did do a video on this and did a bit of a blog post. And again, not to dwell on Power Pages too much, but we can now run cloud flows from Power Pages, which is to
Woohoo!
me game changer in terms of doing
Yes.
Power Pages development. So what is this important? Well, a couple things. You can connect to those thousands of connectors that are available in Power Automate, and you can call this directly from a web page. You still need to have a little bit of a pro dev experience there to call that Power Automate flow, but then it will return data back to your web page. Now, of course, everybody's wondering, okay, but Power Automate flows sometimes take a couple minutes or even like longer seconds to run. This is, is it really going to get back to the web page in time? These flows run synchronously as opposed to asynchronously, meaning it needs to run to finish before it will allow you to do the next thing. So for instance, in my video, I did I just called the weather service, which is actually what the sort of scenario we put in the docs as well. And the weathers was popping back almost instantaneously. Like I was sort of surprised at how quick it ran. So this, yeah, if you're doing Power Pages development and you've been trying to do things through the the unsecure way to call flows. You
You
can do.
invented that, didn't you, back in the day
I
with the HTTP request? But
I
everyone's
did.
been using it ever since.
Yeah,
Don't use it
yeah.
in production, says on the top. I think 90% of people reading that was like, oh, I'm going to use this in production. I'm not
And
going
I
to tell
and
anybody
I
about it. But
yeah, yeah. And I might have as well, to be fair. But then I did replace it with the web API later. But anyways, long story short, check out the Cloud Flows for Power Pages. It, like I said, it's a game changer. So many things, so many different scenarios that you don't have to do a lot of extra dev for now. You can do a Cloud Flows, and this opens it up for makers. And again, there's that fusion team. Get your developers focused on the important stuff and this kind of stuff. The low code makers can do a lot, add a lot of value, creating Power Automate instead.
yeah, but I do also hope that this will be more low code friendly. It shouldn't be. So we have that. We have the ability to trigger pod automates from Power Apps. We've had that for a long time. I'm expecting to see this. I don't have any insights into this in regards to Power Page and where the team is going with this, but I would expect something like this to be low code friendly in a couple of releases. I have that expectation that yes, sure, and it's like the web template and the manifest and all that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, put it out there and make us, allow us to test it and try it out. But if you see that it's catching on, then I hope they'll bring it down to the or up to the citizen developer user
Yeah, and
themselves.
I can't comment on the roadmap, but I would sort of say as an outside observer, I could see this being just on the components page, like you add a text, a form, a list, whatever. Why not have add a Power Automate, add a web template?
Yeah, no, I
I've
would go
I've
even further
Yeah.
and say if you put a button on a page, you should be able to push that to a URL, to a page, or trigger a pod automate flow. Done.
Yep.
I think it should
I,
be as simple as that.
yeah, I totally
And
agree.
while we're on topic of background, so synchronous and asynchronous workflows.
Yeah.
That reminds me of back in the old days when you have the now legacy or old workflows in Dynamics or in Dataverse, which brings me to the low code plugins that we
Hmm.
now saw released at Build. Because when I was on a project a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, if I wanted to do something we had a Power Page project where you could create project templates. So you would go to the portal, log in, select new project, and you can choose some templates. And whatever template you would choose, a backend process would run where it would go create that project from that template and then bring you back. As you were saying, the thing that we can now do with Power Automate directly, that we could do, but then we use plugins
Hmm.
because the only way to get the feedback, to get that feedback from the process and to have the user wait for that process to be done before they could move further was to use a plugin. Is that the same? So when we talk about local plugins in Dataverse now that was released during build, is that the same? Are we in the same space? Is
Yeah.
that the same thing?
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same space. So think of like Um, I mean, I used to write plugins a lot more. And a lot of times the plugins are very simple logic, but a couple reasons why we want plugins is we want this to be triggered on like an update of data, certain triggers we want to happen to Dataverse to trigger our plugin. And then we want it needs to be synchronous, needs to happen a calculation or goes out and does something and then immediately updates Dataverse as the user is staring at the screen. These plugins up until and even now, because this is an experimental feature, you need full on Visual Studio. You need to go in and write using the technology to intercept the pipeline, like it's different type of pipelines, but what they call the execution pipeline. Tap into that, get your pre-image, your post-image, all of this fun stuff when you're writing a plugin. And this is all written usually in C sharp. I believe you could do it in Visual Basic too if you wanted, but I think all the examples are now in C sharp code. And this is a pro developer experience. This is something where I know a lot of people, and you probably run into this as well, is like, okay, this is something we need a pro dev to do. You need to give them the requirements. They'll write the plugin and then you can enable it, disable it, and it runs in the background, but it runs synchronously. um, this is where we now can actually a low code maker can make plugins themselves. So this goes beyond workflows, but allows you to write Power Effects code and then be able to do a calculation or do whatever kind of logic that's involved with writing that plugin. Again, sort of taking some of those chores away from the developer. That's, again, we're not getting rid of, like, developers will still be situations where,
Don't
you
call
know,
us. Don't email us. We
yeah,
know.
there'll be situations where you still need to, get a pro code developer to write a big expansive plugin. But this, again, will take a lot of those simple things, like, to do even a basic calculation or something like that. This is something where I could see, yes, you could write this quote unquote plugin. It should deploy the same, it should act the same, but we're just going through writing it in Power Effects using a nice interface instead of having to install Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code, just pull on Visual Studio Professional or
Mm,
Enterprise, building that
yeah.
plugin, doing all that installation and whatever else. The last time I wrote a plugin was, I think, 4 years ago. I needed it for a project, and then I hadn't written a plugin for a couple years before that. The plugin that I wrote probably should have taken me like less than an hour. It was pretty simple. It probably took me 2 days because I had to figure out, okay, how do I write a plugin again? How do I set my environment to write
Yeah.
plugins? How do I get this to trigger? And I hadn't written C
Mm.
sharp in so long. So, anyways, this to me, I was looking at this going, ooh, could I have written that plugin using Power Effects? Not that I'm a Power Effects expert either, but
No, but
this would have
yeah.
been a lot. The happy path would have been a lot shorter to get to the same result.
Yeah, and I've asked developers in the past as well if this is something that I need to get into. So me as a non-pro coder, really, is this something that I need to know how to do? And they're like, yeah, no, don't get into it. You should always be in a Fusion team and have developers ready to go who knows exactly what they're doing and can do this in a Wi-Fi. You would, take too long, exactly as you were saying. But can you explain to me, when we have Power Automate and the power that we have now, when do I need a plugin? When is it not enough to use Power Automate? When would I choose a plugin over Power Automate? What can it do that Power Automate can't?
Uh, this is where I say it depends. um, to me, a
You're allowed
plugin,
to say, I don't know. You don't need to know everything.
no, but I think the quick answer is, if it needs to be, it needs to be a synchronous operation typically. Now, this is the funny thing about the what we talk about, the Power Automate flows from Power Pages, where they did sort of make them synchronous. But in this case, this is where, a plugin, you typically want it to be synchronous, but you might also want it to run before you update a value to validate. So that's where sometimes with a flow, you're triggering a flow off a Dataverse update. The flow happens sort of after the fact. You can't say only update this if something happens, where in a plugin you can say, we're going to do a pre-validation. Ooh, it's not going to work, so then we're not going to update this value or
Mm.
something like that. And passing, this is the state of your record before, like your pre-image, and then this is what it is after the fact. um, so I think definitely the synchronous thing, that would be a really good actually conference topic of plugins versus Power Automate, when to use each. Because I that's my 10-second explanation, or 10 30-second explanation is probably not super deep, but I think the crux of it is it really goes to that synchronous, asynchronous, and then also at what point do you want this calculation to happen in your process.
All right.
That's
So yeah, what I and when I went through the announcement for local plugins from Build, it was also what was new is you have the instant plugins and you have the automated plugins, and that you can actually now connect to other things than Dataverse. It has been possible to use the Dataverse API before.
mhm,
That's always been there. But the new thing is that you can connect to any of the thousands connectors that you have in any Power Automate flow. It would work more like a child flow
mhm.
and that is new. So that makes, of course, the possibilities of what you can use this for immensely, then yeah, the sky's the limit, basically.
Exactly. And then again, you're not always reliant on developers. And don't get me wrong, I work with a lot of great developers. But sometimes they're so hard to like get some of their time because they're working on other stuff and you just need a very simple plugin. And so hopefully this sort of alleviates that pressure as well.
Yeah, or for a proof of concept when you just
Mhm.
need something to fire off something and you don't have access to those developers yet in a proof of concept or an MVP or some sort. Then this would be a way to show the customer that yes, this is something that we can achieve. This will be a success on a happy path
Yep.
again, and then you can have that developer extend this to what it needs to be once you're in production and going to production.
Yep.
Right. Nice. Yeah, great. Next
Oh,
up.
so this was a big thing, a little announcement, huge impact. And it wasn't even really announced. It was just someone noticed this in the documentation. I actually went and investigated, and basically reduction in activity pointer base storage. People are probably wondering, what the heck does that mean? But what you do know is probably a lot of customers run into this. I know a lot of my customers ran into this, getting that email message, you're running out of Dataverse storage, or you're
Oh
over
yeah.
Dataverse storage, or you're over Dataverse storage and you're not allowed to create any new environments until you clean this up. And,
Yeah.
we're not joking. You're over Dataverse storage. So, and then when you go and investigate it, you're like, well, hold on. Why is my Dataverse filled up? And when I talk about Dataverse capacity, it's all based on licensing, what licenses you have, what other extra capacity you may have purchased. And you start out with 10 gigabytes typically with a Power Apps per user license. You first get 10 gigabytes allocated. There's other allocations depending on other licenses. And you go in, you go, wait a minute. I run a small business. I don't have a lot of data. I'm only doing so many things in my Dataverse, my Power App. Why the heck is my Dataverse full? And you take a look, and then you notice this table, activity pointer base storage, is using up 80% of my Dataverse storage. And you're like, what the heck is that? And you dig in further. It's like, it's emails typically. So if you're doing any kind of, email tracking, typically this would be a CRM functionality. If you're sending out emails or tracking emails, they take up a lot of space. Of course, attachments take up a lot of space. So that used to eat up most of your Dataverse storage. That a couple years ago, they reformatted it. So your file storage got offloaded to Azure Blob, meaning when you look at your Dataverse capacity, you have Dataverse storage, sort of database storage, and then file storage, and of course log storage. So you got a lot more file storage because that's cheaper processing on the back end. But still your Dataverse was full of this activity pointer stuff. So now what Microsoft has done is in the back end, they've reallocated that anything going in the activity pointer, and the activity pointer, this is a whole structure of how Dataverse, how the backend data model works in terms of how activity tables work and how this is going back to CRM3 days of how this was engineered. And that's a 2-hour talk on its own of
You should do
why
a blog
this,
post explaining it from scratch.
oh
I
boy.
don't
Yeah.
think, if you would take, all the developers out there on my level, I don't think anyone could explain to you how that actually works. We're just going to leave it. I know how to work around it and I know how to use it. And then that's it.
Yeah. So long story short, there's this table called activity pointer base storage, and it fills up fast. It eats up a lot of space. Now, what they've done is they've reallocated that to go to file storage. And it's basically a one paragraph in an existing doc. There was no announcement that I've seen. Maybe there was, but then going into some other projects I've worked on in the past, I've logged because of customers I knew were running into storage problems, and all of a sudden they have, like, you see the line drop on the activity pointer. Like it was like
Wow.
last week, it just dropped, and all of a sudden there was, like, even in my own tenant, I noticed like a huge increase in space that I had available. So this is a huge thing. We do have a link. We'll have a link in the show notes. So if you're one of those customers who all of a sudden you're no longer getting your Dataverse's overflowing email messages, this is why. Check it out and see what space you have So this gives you a little bit of extra breathing room. If you are paying for extra space, maybe you can scale that back. Probably not, but at least this is a much better thing. So like I said, small little announcement, big impact for everyone.
Yeah, and this will impact performance as well, wouldn't it? Because
Oh,
I
for
know
sure.
a lot of customers, when they have performance issues, is mostly because they're out of storage.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. So huge, like you were saying, a small step and then huge impact. Another small thing that I know will impact a lot of our community friends is the Power Pages developer site.
Mm-hmm.
This is a small thing as well, and it came out, I think, in May still. A little announcement from the Leap, wasn't it? The Leap thing that
Yep.
had that announcement
Yeah.
that you can now create your own Power Pages developer site. And this will allow you to have a Power Page setup that doesn't expire. That if it has activity, like all the other developer resources that we have, if it has activity, you will be able to keep it. It will not you will not be able to put it into production, and you will not be able to put it public. It would always be private. But then you would have your own developer site. And this is
Yep.
really welcoming news. The only thing missing in that announcement is the link to where you would go to find it. But I think it's coming, isn't it?
Yeah. It's on my to-do list. So
So, do you know anyone in documentation that you can push to make
uh
this a little faster? Maybe
yeah. I'll figure it out. It's I
busy week, Nick.
I know a guy. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know people. I know people. We'll sort it out. But yeah, that's basically it's not going to expire. You only have one developer website per developer environment. Although on the weekend, I was able to create multiple developer environments on a developer site still. So that might be hampered a bit because I think I don't know, the first run experience just kept kicking in on me for some reason. But that's a whole other story. But
I know.
again,
I
you
have a
can.
blog post on how to work around it.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah, it's
So,
that. It's that bad.
okay, so and then the other one is but the thing is you're not stuck in that environment. So if you do develop your entire site, it looks beautiful, and your customer's like, yeah, let's deploy it. You can deploy it from your developer site to your production site. Of course, if you use the enhanced data model, you can use the new solutions. Again, this is still in preview, but this is something you can definitely try out. And if you really want to automate it, guess what? You can move it using Power Platform pipelines. So,
Woohoo! We need to get one of those sounds that
yeah,
they can
the
have, Woo!
no, why would we do that? Because you're
So
perfect at
cool.
doing the sounds.
I'm the audio. Yeah,
You're the
no,
soundbite. Yeah,
sure.
perfect.
No, but
So
this gets me excited, but I get overly excited about very small things. But this is great. This is huge, and it gets me so excited. Enhancements to pipelines. This is what you're talking about, right?
yep, absolutely, yeah. And I did try it. I was like, it's funny. Last week, I thought, hey, I wonder now that pipeline or Power Pages is part of solutions, and we can move solutions with pipelines, then we should be able to move Power Pages with pipelines. And I tried it out. I did a video, posted it on on Saturday, maybe sometime this weekend, and
Yep.
um, and then what the thing is, there are a couple extra steps that I outline in the blog post as well about activating sites and setting up the solutions and continuous. But check that out. But overall, let's focus more on like the pipelines themselves. If you've not used Power Platform pipelines, even if you're not using Power Pages, this is a great easy way to get into ALM without diving deep into the Azure DevOps GitHub Actions, which are very cool as well. But this is sort
Releases
of
and pipelines and
yeah,
everything. I still
yeah,
need developer help to set that up. This enables me.
yeah.
And yeah, it's so easy that I can do it. Anyone can do it.
Well, it just
And I'm,
go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry. No, go.
Oh, all I was saying is because there's new enhancements coming to pipelines as well, and I've heard comments going, well, yeah, their pipelines are cool, but they're not quite enterprise ready. But it's sort of like, yeah, but they're already 100 times further than what a lot of companies are using. I still know projects. I know there's projects in the wild where they're still exporting the solution manually and importing it. And they have a, oh, we're doing a deployment, and it's all a manual process. And it's just sort of like, hey, there's there's an easier way with the pipelines that you can set this up, you can schedule it, and you can, once it's set up, then it's just a matter of pressing buttons, and it just, everything moves so nicely. And it keeps a copy of that solution as well, like in a Dataverse environment. And then the cool part is, and I'm hoping I'm not stealing your thunder in terms of what we're suggesting or what we're talking about, but now there's an announcement that, you're going to be able to run Power Automate flows as part of a pre-step or post-step. So you can actually, if there's extra steps that you need to do that can be automated, you can actually use the Power Automate for that. And then the other cool thing that I didn't realize, and seeing this now and just reading that post, is we can do, there's going to be AI suggested deployment notes, which is huge because people are horrible at doing documentation.
I know. Yeah, no, and it's coming. It's coming soon. Everyone will be able to create the AI suggested deployment notes. Because they know that we're terrible at describing what we've done. And it's creating stuff or last deployment or something new, or, it's horrible. Download a portal, I think, is my favorite. When I commit changes to GitHub, that's download a portal, because I do that every morning because I know that my customer's done something, during the night. So I download the portal every morning. So that's the most common thing that I do. But I don't describe what's changed more often than not. And as you were saying, you do this using Power Automate. And that is what I feel great about this. Finally, someone realized we should put this into something familiar to people. Don't create something new, but connect it into something that we already have, that we already know. So you use Power Automate to configure, and you can connect it to the use approval flow system that we already know. Configure that. And also the release, you can add the release notes to those deployments. And you can, of course, then you can use that as an official release note if you want. So you can connect it to thousands. You can you can tweet your release notes if you want to, right? So this blows this out. I'm so excited about this. And I saw this coming. So when there were call for speakers for the Power Platform conference that we have in Las Vegas, I saw this coming. This was in early March, April. Yep. I thought pipelines is going to be huge, and of course it's going to work with Power Pages. I hoped and guessed. So that is one of my talks in Vegas, is about how to move Power Pages, and that was just a guess. I hoped, I betted that would be huge by the time we got to Vegas, and I was right. And I'm so excited to talk about this.
Are you excited?
A wee bit.
You're ready to wow. That's awesome. I love the enthusiasm. It's so cool.
Yeah, but can you get that excited about ALM? There's something wrong with me. It's not. I don't think it's supposed to be that excited about something that boring.
No, because I totally get it, because it's sort of like I've spent years exporting solutions and importing solutions and trying to set up like PowerShell and all these other things.
And guess what? You need to do it outside of work hours. I've done this during Saturday, drinking wine. It's so prone to errors. I don't know how many hours I spent.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we have to deploy a solution, and then doing it like Friday mornings or like late Saturday nights, and then all of a sudden
something breaks.
Oh
and you had to turn all the flows on and off, and then you had to reconnect and reinitiate all the connections. Something went wrong. I did something in the wrong order. You had the huge OneNote on the one side, all the steps you had to take, and all the things you had to reactivate. It's horrible. One little mistake, and I had to call the IT guy. Those days are over.
Wait, I don't know if you remember, like in the old interface, it's still there. You still see that progress bar when it's importing a solution. And then have you ever had it where it goes, and then all of a sudden it's almost done, and then it starts going backwards? Like that is the worst. That is the worst feeling in the world. It's the worst thing, watching this. Like, and it's funny, on the new interface they don't have that progress bar, and I'm wondering if they removed it because of all the anxiety and stress that it caused people watching this thing.
And then we are used to the Microsoft progress bar. It's Microsoft Minutes, and it's
Yes.
because you're 1 second away, and it's a Microsoft second. It's not like the normal seconds. Yeah,
Yeah.
it has its own time zone.
Cool.
Right. No, but it's huge, and I'm really excited about it, and it's going to be so fun to actually talk about that during the Microsoft Power Platform
Yeah.
conference
I'm
in Vegas. It's going
looking
to be great.
forward to that. That's a ways off
Yeah,
yet.
me too.
So I think the other thing that probably the last thing we can talk about is this that you added to our list here is Wrap Power Apps GA.
Yeah, another thing that I'm excited about.
Uh-oh, here we go. Strap yourselves in,
Here we go.
folks.
No, but it has been here for a while, and I've tried it out as well. The news is that it's GA. So being able to wrap Power Apps, you can have one or two, and you can wrap them together and deploy to, and you don't say deploy, do you? Put them up on the Play Store or the iOS, the App Store, as a normal native app. So
Mhm.
your end user would know that from any other app that you have in your phone. And it is really, it's a 5-step wizard process you would go through. It guides you through every step. And yes, there are steps here that you have to create an app registration in Azure, for instance, that can, scare people off, but you're able to do it within the wizard experience. So it's not anywhere during those 5 that you have to go, outside of your context or ask your IT guy. You are able to do it within the context. And I love it. And it's so intuitive, and it guides you through it. And it feels like a very secure process. Now, the first thing that I know people might ask is, can you put this through? So my phone, for instance, might have a work profile. You're only able to install apps on your phone that they deploy through Intune, for instance. It's a
Mhm.
very common thing that people have. And yes, it will automatically configure your app to be distributed through Intune, for instance. So it does a lot of those things in the backend that is very hard for a non-developer to do, to understand, that you would have to, have that as a requirement even. That it will actually teach you as you go along. It will automatically create all the required API permissions, for instance. And also a common requirement is, can you create that B2C mobile app with Power Apps? Because that is the question, right? So who's your end user? Now, that doesn't change. So this will require you to authenticate through Azure AD. It will only be the internal users that you would have anyways. So that doesn't change. So the end user is still the same as
Okay,
for any
so
Power App.
so my version of Candy Crush that I built using Power Apps that I want to distribute to the world and do in-app purchases and make millions of dollars, I can't do with this.
No, not
Okay.
not now. No. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's really cool, and I love that this is a true low code experience in my view, because it takes something that is so advanced, and half the time I had to go through the links because I
Mhm.
didn't really get what it was asking me about. Bundle ID, right? And or what is it? Or host center app center localization. Didn't really get what it was. It was links in the wizard allowing you to get familiar with what it was, and it guided you through the process. And it was small checkboxes along the way that you're on the right track. So I really like the experience, and I think it's really worth checking out, especially also if you're creating an app for your organization where the organization isn't familiar with Power Apps to
Mhm.
begin with. It feels more secure, and it's more of a trusted thing, I think, if you can go to the App Store and download that app.
It's it's it's
Yeah.
it's probably like a mental thing too, right? Like it's sort of like, hey, everyone, we created this app for like to do your time and expense or something like that. And then people, like everybody knows how to install an app. Like it's not like you have to go
Exactly.
around to all their machines and install it kind of thing, right? So very cool.
Yeah, and I've had that pushback as well. So if I want to get this app, yeah, well then you have to install the Power Apps app, and then you'll have to launch the app within the Power Apps app, and then it feels kind of cumbersome. So if you can have that directly on your app as any other native app on your phone, then yeah, it's cool.
Cool.
And that was what we had time for today. Unfortunately, we will be back in a couple of weeks with new news because they will never stop coming. But there's something exciting happening between now and then, Nick.
Yes. So next week we're going to be like in the same place, like for the first time in a long time.
I'm
And
going to be able to give you that big beer hug. Finally.
yay!
There's so many months. Haven't seen you since February, right? That was the last time we actually was in the same location.
Yeah, exactly. So this will be exciting. The European Power Platform Conference. If you haven't signed up yet, I think there's still a few tickets left, maybe, but they were getting close to being sold out. And they might be. You can try it, but if you do, definitely use the Boost discount code, get 10% off. And we're going to be broadcasting short little episodes or bits and pieces from there, kind of summarizing the day, what's coming up. So if you kind of want to get a little bit of a summary, definitely tune in for that. Excited about that. So I'll be doing some training on Tuesday. So if you signed up for the 3-day pass and you're in the training, looking forward to seeing you there. Working with Ahmed, we're going to do a Power Platform developer, pure developer stuff in the morning, and in the afternoon, I'm going to focus on Power Pages development, covering a lot of cool things. I've done videos and blogs about the last few months, but really diving in more of that developer experience and what fits with how you can work well with your low code makers and develop amazing websites. And then, I'm doing a session on crash course on Power Pages. So if you're new to Power Pages, don't know what it's about, attend my session. I'll give you the rundown and we'll cover some of the new stuff too. Like I'll show you some of the new co-pilots and things like that. But really, again, just get you to Hello World with Power Pages. So check that out.
Oh, that's going to be awesome. And if you find us at any of Nick's session or the training session or just randomly, we'll have stickers on us. So if you can show us that you're a subscriber to our podcast, we will give you a free sticker.
Yes. You got to show your phone, show that you've subscribed to the Power Platform Boost podcast on whatever podcasting app you like best. And if you show us that, we'll give you a sticker. For sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much looking forward to this event. I know it's going to be jam-packed with community champions and stars. I think everyone is going. I don't really know about anyone's not going. It's going to be so cool. And Dublin and this time of year, I can't wait for going out for beers with everyone and having fun that whole week.
Yeah, and learning.
Gonna be
great. And learning, of course.
Of course, going to all the sessions and learning all the new stuff. And actually, it's going to be a nice segue from build and through to the platform conference. Going to be, I feel like, the community's take on all the great announcements that we've seen this spring.
Yep.
It's huge.
And then
maybe you should launch an app with the buzzword bingo where it's Copilot and AI only.
Yes. For sure. Oh yeah, that'd be good. And then if you I realize you can't be at every conference all the time, but if you missed this one, still lots of time to book yourself to go to the Nordic Summit in September.
Copenhagen.
Yeah, you and I will be doing a session with that. I also have a pre-day workshop. There's still a pretty nice big discount to get 40% off, Boost 40 to get your discount on those pre-day workshops. And then also the other thing too is if you sign up for my workshop on Power Pages, I'll give you 1 hour of my time to talk about your project and answer whatever questions you got. So sign up now before it's too late, before it fills up.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's going to be awesome. And of course, if you like this podcast and you're here now, then after 43 minutes, I guess you like it. Then please buy us a coffee or buy us a beer. It really helps towards the license cost and helps us keep this podcast alive. So thank you so much from all of you that already did. We really appreciate it.
Cool. And so, if you like this episode, then like I said, like Ulrikke was saying, you listened all the way to the end, the buy me a coffee, but also share with your friends and colleagues. Say, hey, we're listening to this awesome podcast. Check it out. We really like that. Definitely engage with us. We love the comments. We love the shout outs. Please leave a rating on whatever streaming service you're using. That helps people find us as well. And follow us on all the popular social media platforms and even some of the unpopular ones. So thanks again for listening to the Power Platform Boost podcast with your host, Ulrikke Ackerbeck and Nick Dolman. See you next time for your timely boost of Power Platform news. And our next episode will be next week.